Bring Her Back. Rant. Okay, I won't deny that this is, in some or many respects, a strong film. I will insist that this thing will have little rewatch value and is mostly dependent on shocking a first time viewer, even though the fact that trouble is amiss is way too overtly clear too early in the film, so in a respect we just wait to see how the dread will manifest, but whatever, it is still generally captivating. The best performer in the film is Sora Wong. She was quite fantastic, scarily, impactfully believable. And then I do think that Billy Barrett's performance was overall mixed, but I don't want to be very hard on him. He's much younger than I am. It'd be needlessly hostile of me. And whilst I was wholly convinced that Sally Hawkins was some Australian actress, and the reason I didn't figure out it was her is because I was trying to think of Australian films I'd seen her in, as opposed to the Mike Leigh films Paddington and The Shape of Water, one of my absolute favourite films of all time, and one of the few incredibly mainstream films of the 2010s to ascend to this place for me, and wherein I couldn't have agreed with the consensus more, yet I would perhaps go even further than they did. However, I found her performance in this film to be overly dramatic, unnecessarily theatrical, and it really reminded me too much of subpar wannabe Australian acting. That being said, that was plausibly the one way the character was written. Hawkins was just obeying the script and directions, and she certainly pulls off an intensity which, whilst perhaps a tad hackneyed, is fairly convincing and pretty watchable in a rather morbid sense, that is. Everything fell into place when I realised that this was directed by the Raka Raka guys. Okay. I loved those videos. Ronald McDonald killing everyone, that utterly hysterical neck nominate he did. Some of the other stuff was stellar. I swear there was once a video of a gunfight that escalated from an argument about a friend not liking another friend's status on Facebook. I feel as though this film lacks the visionary traits of the classic horror films, some of which are still being released into this century, be it Forest of Lost Souls, The Wailing, Eyes of My Mother, or Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Karipi, and is more of a big-budget contemporary horror film update of the Raka Raka ultra-violent, aggressively surface YouTube uploads. The film is superficial, but pretty entertaining. The cinematography is superlative. The sound design is atrocious. Films need to stop committing to that sonic filth, in my personal opinion. And it just being horror for horror's sake, it is far better than the just painfully hacky, elevated horror, bad, feature-length equivalent of banal message short films in contemporary Australian culture, garbage of, let's all just admit it, Jennifer Kent. Those films have no substance beyond their claims to some allegory or higher meaning. They are complete tosh. I'm aware that I might be incinerating my chances at directing high-budgeted feature films in Australia from now on. I can imagine Kent is the type to feel she's in a superior elitist clique and wants to extinguish those who would criticise or be just, I insist, playfully nasty toward her or other public figures. But hey, I'll take the challenge. I'll direct films with as little money as possible. Try me. I'll direct better films than you ever will. And fuck it. I think I actually have. I'm not even going to try and pretend to be modest regarding that. Oh yeah, I'll admit, yes. I am just a bitter, highly amateur filmmaker who thinks Pandemonium ought to be getting the attention these kind of Australian films are. I'll be open about that. Because to some extent, these films are just generous budgets. I'd sincerely, non-sarcastically, though the opposite too, love to see what these guys could do in a feature work spending less than $10,000 to $15,000. I don't even know if Pandemonium cost that much, paying actors, fuel, catering on one night of shooting. Whatever the case, I'll probably end up spending at least double that on my current project. Hopefully I'm not totally bankrupt by the end of that production. I have yet to see Talk to Me, and now I would certainly like to do so in the quite near future, indeed. In being more convictedly just mortifying and immensely creepy for its own sake, at times it felt like Australia's version of Martyrs, from 2008, with a bit of Ian Haig's 2018 An Australian flick, The Foaming Node, filtered in, but I don't know how many people have seen that. There were some really spellbinding and genuinely impressive moments in Bring Her Back, but I feel it will lack much rewatch value compared with the truly classic horror flicks, and that cinematographer Aaron McCliskey is the true genius of this film. Hey mate, let's collaborate, and especially if you're willing to work pro bono. But keep making films, everyone involved on Bring Her Back. It is a pretty strong, at times, and at least compositionally, cinematographically, utterly enrapturing at moments. The screenplay itself is generally original, penned by Danny Philippou, one of the two directors, along with his brother Michael and Bill Hinsman. I wouldn't be so quick to point out its potential flaws if I wasn't just an itsy bit jealous of their work. But if I had $15 million. Actually, I have to admit here, I probably wouldn't direct a horror film. I might attempt to create a certain comedy drama I've been envisioning for years, yeah, believe it or not. Though I'm confident I could create two films I'd be proud of with all of that dosh. One would be a loose-ish adaptation of of Borges' short story The Man on the Threshold. The other 7 million I'd probably just give to Noel Oakeshott. He'd direct a better film than any of us would, I can guarantee that. One project I'd love to realize would cost at least 70 million. Film I want to do called Precision, set in the 2000 Sydney Olympics. That would cost a obscene amount of money, like way beyond 15 million, I imagine. Even if it wound up, if I wound up fucking the thing up, I mean, it would still, any attempt would require an annoying amount of money. So okay, this indignant rant over. This film is certainly better than that garbage Hereditary. Though I'm sure Midsommar is pretty cool, I never actually watched it because I have a great distaste for Ari Aster. I think that Hereditary has as much value as 2000's torture porn, and I would throw it in the bin, and then throw away the bin. I was being a bit of a belligerent cunt in the screening of the movie, as you can imagine from this piece, so I apologise to all of you in the cinema, though I won't at all apologise for saying in the theatre publicly at the end, that wasn't perfect, but it was way better than Jennifer Kent's garbage. I can leave this here. Thank you all for suffering through this. There are better things to do. Please, for the love of all that is good and precious, go and do those things. Now, presto.